Members of the Kashechewan First Nation have been evacuated annually in the spring due to flooding in their Northern Ontario community, spending weeks in other communities until floodwaters recede. The flooding is caused annually by snowfall melt and ice blocks in the river. The Cree community sits just off the James Bay coast on the banks of the Albany River and houses about 2,500 residents. The name comes from the Cree Kashechewan, meaning where the river flows fast. The Kashechewan First Nation is currently waiting on the federal and provincial governments to fulfill a promise made almost 3 years ago to move the reserve to higher.
The story of Kashechewan, a remote Cree First Nation community located in northern Ontario near the James Bay coast, is one marked by decades of resilience in the face of systemic neglect and environmental crisis. Repeatedly, this community has found itself submerged, literally and metaphorically, by forces beyond its control. Since the mid-20th century, Kashechewan has been struck by multiple major floods, including those in 1966, 72, 76, 85, 2006, and 2008. Between 2006 to 2008, and again from 2012 to 2019, evacuations were an annual reality.
Speaker, this past weekend, the ice and river rose dangerously high against the dike wall at Kashechewan. People in Kashechewan and Fort Albany were scrambling to get planes in order to get families to safety. Now, the government knows that the dike wall is at risk of a catastrophic failure, and yet every spring they gamble with people's lives. An agreement was signed to move the people to higher ground, and yet they are still on the floodplain. So my question to the minister is simple. When will the people of Kashechewan be moved off that floodplain and moved to a safe and secure future?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Emergency Preparedness.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And as the member knows, because we spoke a number of times and communicated over the weekend, we have, in fact, made arrangements to evacuate the people of Kashechewan from the impacted area, and we are arranging for accommodation in a number of communities across Northern Ontario. The planes are being made available to move people in a timely way, Mr. Speaker. We'll continue with that work. We're also very ably supported by Emergency Management Ontario and people on the ground, and the hard work of the people in Indigenous Services Canada in support of that community.
Oliver Wesley said that if flooding happened already a few times and the government wasn't convinced, I think they want us to die. Get rid of the Indian problem. Affected mental and spiritual well-being and evoked deep historical trauma. Some evacuees compared the process to the devastating experiences of residential schools, where families were forcibly separated and displaced. Kashechewan stands today as one of the most vulnerable lowland areas in all of Canada. The community continues to suffer the consequences of colonialism, climate change, and governmental indifference. Yet, in the face of such adversity, the people of Kashechewan persist with courage, hope, and unity. Their fight is not just for relocation, it's for respect, safety, and healing. This is not only a story of floods, but one of survival, resistance, and the unbreakable spirit of an Indigenous nation that refuses to be washed away. The infrastructure meant to protect them, such as a $16.1 million dike, has been labeled as inadequate and unsafe. Even with such significant investment, the dike does not meet basic safety standards, leaving the community in constant fear during flood season. The results are catastrophic. Homes have been destroyed not only by the waters, but also by the lingering aftermath. Mold infestation rendered 38 houses uninhabitable. Sewage backups have flooded basements, schools, and even the community's clinic, jeopardizing public health. As one elder, David J.B. Wesley, put it, socially, we lost everything. The damage is not just physical, it's psychological, cultural, and generational. Children grow up not knowing stability, while adults brace for loss year after year. Many residents fear for their pets, their jobs, and their dignity with every forced evacuation.